tried to keep a note for the days passing. Day 1 in the cream house, day 11 in the cream house, day 21 in the cream house, day 33 in the cream house, but I still cannot put pen to paper, and I'm not sure these are separate days marked by the sinking and rising of the sun. The sky is so overcast it's hard to tell day from night, and sometimes it feels as if 3 minutes have passed when it's been 3 days, and 3 nights pass like a shiver of wind through the trees. I can't tell shadows from bodies, voices from spirits. Mama sits at the end of my bed and tut-tuts in her ineffectual way. She reaches out every so often to brush my hair back off my forehead. Luca's face becomes an unknown man's face, me under him, then the man's face becomes Luca's, and I want to reach out and kiss it and smash it.
Lisa Harding, thank you very much. Now, too dark, difficult to market, doesn't have mass universal appeal. Those were some of the comments made about the book Harvesting, written by the actress and writer Lisa Harding when it was rejected by publishers. It's now an award-winning novel. It's being made into a movie and it's being translated into French. Lisa Harding, congratulations.
Thank you.
Congratulations and welcome. Now, Sex Trafficking. Harvesting is a book written in the first person, present tense, in the voices of women who are modern-day slaves. How did you find this subject?
Well, I was involved in a campaign. I was invited to be involved in a campaign run by the Body Shop and the Children's Rights Alliance in Ireland. This was back in 2012, and it was called Stop Sex Trafficking of Children and Young People. And it was part of an ECPAT initiative, so a worldwide drive against this. These are minors. The characters in my book, they're minors, and I was brought in as an actress, and I was asked to perform or to read the first-hand testimonies of some of these girls that were trafficked to Ireland. And I remember at the time just being so shocked that I hadn't realised, first of all, that it's so prevalent. Secondly, that some of the girls are Irish, this idea of domestic trafficking, and also that the girls are so young. The ages were between 13 and 15 of the testimonies that I was furnished with. So I think it was on my part, it was a kind of a shock, and just to assimilate that this was actually happening on our shores and how prevalent it is, and that it's growing. It's a flourishing trade. So all of those things combined just made me determined to give voice somehow to these voiceless girls, because they're so traumatized they don't have a voice. Yeah.
It did get published. It's won awards. I want to just hear from your publisher, Maria Deegan from New Island Books.
It exposes a part of Irish life that most people often don't realise is happening, or certainly don't like to remember is happening. And I'm delighted now that it's been commissioned for a film and that we're selling rights worldwide. Because I think this probably is an international problem. It's not just in Ireland, it's happening everywhere.
So this was a difficult novel to sell. It's now being made into a film, directed by Michael Lennox. Roddy Doyle has said Harvesting is shocking and shockingly good. It's thought-provoking, anger-provoking, guilt-provoking, a brilliantly written novel. And the Irish First Lady even wrote an article about it. Have you been surprised by this reaction?
Yeah, of course I was surprised, because I struggled, first of all, I struggled with my own legitimacy, around writing about this topic. Obviously, I haven't experienced it firsthand, and I wasn't an expert going into writing about it. So I had a lot of concerns about putting it into the world. But once I knew, because I had support from various NGOs, CCF in Moldova and in Ireland, Ruama and the Immigrant Council. And once I knew that I had those experts behind the book saying this can touch readers' minds and hearts in a way that no amount of reporting of the facts can, and that they were all really, encouraging of the arts actually as a kind of a medium, to get this message out there, to get people to just realise that this is happening and we need to have these discussions. So in terms of the critical response, I had no idea how it was going to go. And you have no idea, and it is quite nerve-wracking when you put a book. Yes, and as you're right, particularly because it had been turned down so much, and the response was quite, this is just, it's a hard topic to engage with, and it was for me. It's one of those things we don't want to look at, really.
And I read that someone said to you in the process of writing that a novel of this kind can touch readers' minds and hearts in a way no amount of reporting of the facts can do.
Yeah.
Why can art art touch people more than real life, do you think?
I think because it can engender empathy, right? And particularly the form of the novel. Like if you think about Dickens and, anybody who takes on kind of great social topics or political topics, you enter the mind of Oliver, the young orphan, and how much more that is going to touch your heart, and you're going to live with that little boy rather than reading about him as a statistic. And that's what I was really determined to do with these young girls, is like really embody them, give them a voice, make them fully human, have people love them, relate to them. They're young girls, they're sisters, they're daughters, they're perhaps mothers one day, but to relate to them as human beings, not just statistics.
Well, we are in a time when women's voices are being heard in an unprecedented way.
Yes, not these though.
Not these though. That's what I wanted to ask you. With movements like Me Too, does that sort of thing and the world we're living in today, is that going to help victims? I don't want to call them victims, but women affected by sex trafficking, or does something else need to be done? And from your experience in working with a campaign, what needs to be done?
Well, I think it's very different. I mean, these women do not have a voice, but they're utterly traumatized and silenced. Their families have been threatened. Their lives have been threatened. So they can't even engage with, the legislation that's in place to protect them. They're too terrified. So they don't have a voice. And I think what needs to be done, I mean, it's such a huge topic, but it needs to start with the marketplace. It needs to start there. So the Nordic model that has been implemented in France and Ireland and Canada and Norway and Sweden and various Nordic countries, this is a move towards criminalising the buyers of sex, not the prostituted women themselves. So many of them used to be, utterly traumatized, and then they'd be prosecuted. So I think it's kind of a mass movement. We need to talk to our young males. We need a campaign.
Because many of the men involved, according to surveys, don't make the link between sex trafficking, do they, and prostitution?
No, they don't. And actually, it's a really interesting topic, because I think the statistics say that it could be 80 to 90% now of prostitution is infiltrated by criminal gangs. So pimps and prostitutes, it's 80 to 90%. It certainly is in France and Ireland. It's really high. And there's, in Ireland, the trade is worth, I read a statistic from Ruama. It's very hard to come up with statistics, really, because it's so hidden and flourishing. The underworld, it's just so hidden, but that it's worth between 150 million and 250 million in Ireland, this trade. And yet, like, the reported kind of statistics say 87 people were trafficked last year in Ireland. So there's a huge gap between the reality, and what is actually going on.
I wanted to ask you actually about these women's voices. You've often spoken other people's voices as an actress alongside of Moving Readers in Ireland with this book. You're best known for your role as Connie in Fair City. So when you have spent such a long time breathing life into the words of others, how hard is it to find your own voice?
Well, actually, I, as a writer, approach it as breathing life into the words of others. So I very much inhabit the character, psyche, mindset of others. It isn't my own voice. Like, I'm absolutely channeling this young girl, Nicoletta, from Moldova, and the Irish girl, Samantha, from Ireland. So I use my acting training in that way. I use it. It's a similar process for me. I inhabit them. I feel them. I know where they come from. I know how they dress. I know how they feel, and then I live with them through the process of writing it. So, yeah, it's quite similar for me, the way I write.
I wanted to talk about your second book that you've written, Overspill, which explores the generational effects of alcoholism. It's another socially motivated piece of work.
Another cheery read.
What attracts you to the aspects of modern day society that are still a bit taboo?
Well, I personally believe, and actually it's not very fashionable to believe this, but in literary circles at the moment, it's very intellectual, it's about form, but I believe in the power of art to affect change. And I really, really strongly believe that if you have a voice, use it. And for those, particularly those that are voiceless, so, children who grow up in alcoholic families, it's not just a social, demographic. It's across. It affects everybody. It touches people's lives that they often don't have a voice till much later in life. And by then so much damage has been done. So yeah, I'm always interested, and I need to write about topics that make me feel something. Usually it's anger that motivates me, actually. And then there's this huge empathy. I have to feel heart around it before I will sit down to write it. It's not a very intellectual exercise with me.
Okay, well, Lisa, doing it from the heart, that's the best way, I think. And we always wrap up with, I guess, cultural pick of the moment.
Oh, yes.
What have you chosen for us?
Okay, so from the heart as well.
I remember weeping about the film that you're about to talk about.
Yeah. So that's Nadine Lebiki's Capernaum. I hope I've said it correctly. But again, she's an incredible filmmaker and agitator. So her work is, concerned again with giving voice to the voiceless. And what would these children say? These invisible children, these street children. What would they say if you could give them a platform? And I love how she framed it. She gave this young boy in Beirut who runs away from home, who experiences abuse at the hands of his family and desperate poverty. And it's, apart from all of that, as you can see, it's so beautifully shot, and there's so much heart, and it's that kind of melding of beauty and brutality, I think, is very honouring to your subjects. There's look at him, he's such an extraordinary little boy. But yeah, I really, really respect her as a filmmaker. I think she's very important, the work that she's creating.
Well, we definitely agree with you. The producer, Jenny, and me both watched this film at Cannes, and we both came out weeping.
I know.
Weeping about it.
Really stunning.
Okay.
Yeah.
Lisa Harding, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you. Lovely to be here.
Your book has just been translated into French, Harvesting. Remember our website, we're also on Twitter, Facebook and Instagram. There's more news coming up on France 24 after this.
شو بدك من أهلك؟
ما بقى بدي إياهم يخلفوا.
علي صوتك بس.
ما بقى بدي إياهم يخلفوا.